On the early morning of August 30, 2013, a 19-year-old college student vanished off California's Interstate 5, just hours after calling his mother to say he was pulling over to sleep. His SUV was later found crashed at the bottom of an embankment near Castaic Lake with its rear window smashed from the inside. While his phone, wallet, keys, and laptop were all left behind, he was nowhere to be found. What began as a series of strange, erratic behaviors in the days leading up to his trip would quickly turn into a convoluted mystery, triggering one of the most intensive and baffling missing person investigations in California history. I'm Frank, and let's begin. Naperville, Illinois, in the early 90s was the quintessential Midwestern suburb, known for its quiet neighborhoods, top-rated schools, and low crime rates. And this is where Bryce David Laspisa was born on April 30, 1994. He was the only child of Karen and Michael Laspisa, and by all accounts had a warm, comfortable, and stable childhood. He was visually artistic and enjoyed graphic design. He also played guitar and was known to be a charismatic, outgoing personality that made him popular among his peers. In 2012, after Bryce graduated from high school, his parents relocated to Laguna Niguel in Southern California. Bryce chose to move to Northern California to attend Sierra College in Rocklin, a suburb near Sacramento, where he intended to study graphic design. His freshman year at Sierra College went exceptionally well. Bryce adapted smoothly to independent living, moving into an off-campus apartment with a roommate named Son, and maintained solid academic standing. During this time, he met a young woman named Kim Cameron, who was attending college in nearby Chico. The two began dating, and their relationship appeared stable and happy. Bryce spent the summer of 2013 back home with his parents in Orange County, enjoying family time before returning to Rocklin in mid-August to prepare for his sophomore year. The fall semester at Sierra College began on Monday, August 26, 2013. Up until this point, there were no obvious warning signs or indicators of distress. However, within 48 hours of classes starting, those closest to Bryce noticed a sudden and alarming shift in his demeanor and actions. Friends reported that Bryce had started taking Vyvanse, a powerful prescription stimulant used to treat ADHD, for which he did not have a prescription. He was using the medication to stay awake for extended gaming sessions while simultaneously consuming heavy amounts of hard liquor. On the evening of Tuesday, August 27, Bryce's behavior escalated from unusual to erratic. He approached his roommate Son and handed over his most prized personal possessions and a pair of expensive diamond stud earrings, stating simply that he wanted Son to have them. When pressed, Bryce offered no clear explanation for the gifts. Son was deeply unnerved by the interaction and called Karen Laspisa to express his concerns about her son's well-being. The following day, Wednesday, August 28, the situation devolved further. Bryce abruptly broke up with his girlfriend Kim via text message, telling her that she would be better off without him. Later that afternoon, he drove his beige 2003 Toyota Highlander from Rocklin up to Kim's apartment in Chico, a drive of roughly 90 minutes. When he arrived, Kim was horrified by his appearance and behavior. He appeared confused, disoriented, and was acting unnaturally distant. Realizing he was in no condition to drive, Kim confiscated his car keys, refusing to let him leave. She immediately called Karen Laspisa to inform her of Bryce's condition. Karen offered to fly up to Northern California the next morning to assist. But Bryce took the phone and told his mother not to come, insisting that he was fine. At approximately 11:30 p.m., Bryce convinced Kim to return his car keys, stating that he was going to head home to his apartment in Rocklin. But rather than driving back to his apartment, Bryce headed south on Interstate 5, initiating a 500-mile trip toward his parents' house in Laguna Niguel. But the drive, which should have taken around 7 hours to complete, instead devolved into a series of deeply erratic and puzzling sequence of events that to this day has never been fully explained. On the morning of Thursday, August 29, around 9 a.m., Bryce's mother, Karen, received an unexpected credit card alert showing a charge from a mobile roadside provider named Castro Tire and Gas. The transaction had taken place in Buttonwillow, a small agricultural town along Interstate 5, about 3 hours north of their home. Concerned, Karen called the service provider and spoke with the owner, Christian, who explained that Bryce had run out of fuel on a remote dirt road near the highway. Christian had delivered 3 gallons of gasoline to Bryce, who paid with his mother's card. When Karen attempted to call her son, he assured her he was on his way home. However, several hours passed and Bryce failed to arrive. By 3 p.m., Karen was frantic and called Christian back to ask if he could check the area. Christian drove back out to the location where he had delivered the gas hours earlier. To his surprise, Bryce's Toyota Highlander was still parked in the exact same spot, and Bryce was sitting inside the vehicle, completely stationary. Christian approached the car and talked to Bryce, urging him to get back on the road and drive home to his family. Bryce agreed, and Christian watched him start the vehicle and pull back onto Interstate 5. When Bryce still had not arrived in Orange County by 6 p.m., Karen and Michael filed a formal missing persons report with the Orange County Sheriff's Department. Authorities tracked Bryce's cell phone signal, which revealed that he had not moved far. He was still lingering in the Buttonwillow area. At approximately 9 p.m., a Kern County Sheriff's deputy was dispatched to locate the vehicle. The deputy found Bryce's SUV parked outside a local business. He conducted a standard welfare check and spoke with Bryce for over 20 minutes. He performed a field sobriety test and searched the vehicle for drugs or open containers. The deputy concluded that Bryce was completely coherent, polite, and articulate, and showed no signs of alcohol or drug intoxication. Because Bryce was 19 years old and had not committed a crime, the officer could not detain him. However, the deputy called Karen directly, letting her speak to her son. He then stood by and watched as Bryce entered the highway, heading south toward Orange County. Despite being back on the highway, Bryce's strange delays continued. At 1:50 a.m. on Friday, August 30, Karen received another phone call from Bryce. He told her he was pulling off Interstate 5 into a quiet residential area near Castaic Lake, situated in northern Los Angeles County, because he was too tired to drive any further. He informed her that he intended to sleep in his car for a few hours before completing the final 2-hour leg of the drive. Karen agreed, telling him to rest and to call her as soon as he woke up. That phone call at 2:08 a.m. was the final time anyone ever heard the voice of Bryce Laspisa. At approximately 5:30 a.m. on August 30, a California Highway Patrol officer responded to a report of a single-vehicle accident near Castaic Lake. The crash site was located at the bottom of a steep 15-foot embankment near the Lake Hughes Road access ramp. Resting on its passenger side was Bryce's 2003 Toyota Highlander. The scene presented immediate and baffling contradictions. Tire tracks at the top of the incline indicated that the vehicle had been driven down the dirt-launched ramp at a high rate of speed, plunging down the embankment without making any attempt to apply the brakes. The vehicle's rear window had been completely shattered and blown out from the inside. Inside the wreckage, responding officers discovered almost all of Bryce's personal property. His cell phone, wallet, driver's license, laptop, and duffel bag containing his clothes were left behind, alongside his car keys. A small amount of blood was detected on the driver's side headrest and the interior windshield. But forensic analysis later showed the blood volume was far too small to suggest a major life-threatening physical trauma. Crucially, Bryce himself was nowhere to be found. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department immediately launched a massive search and rescue operation surrounding Castaic Lake. Over the course of several days, search teams deployed helicopters equipped with thermal imaging, mounted horseback patrols, ground searchers, dive teams to scour the lakebed, and specialized scent-tracking search dogs. The tracking dogs picked up Bryce's scent near the wrecked vehicle and followed it away from the crash site, leading past the main dam and terminating near a truck stop along Interstate 5. This led investigators to consider the strong possibility that Bryce had walked away from the crash and either hitchhiked or accepted a ride from a passing truck driver. On September 4, 2013, tension spiked when searchers discovered a badly burnt body in a remote patch of brush near Castaic Lake. For several days, the public and the Laspisa family feared the worst. However, a coroner's examination conclusively ruled out Bryce, identifying the remains as belonging to an unrelated homicide victim named Lamondre Miles, who had been killed elsewhere and dumped near the park. In the months and years following the crash, investigators examined numerous theories. One prominent theory suggested that Bryce was experiencing a sudden substance-induced psychotic episode or an early-onset mental health crisis brought on by a combination of sleep deprivation, alcohol, and Vyvanse. Analysts hypothesized that this state of mind caused his extreme hesitation during the drive and ultimately led him to intentionally drive his vehicle off the embankment. Another theory posited that Bryce staged the accident as a means to walk away from his life entirely, seeking to start fresh under a new identity. A theory partially supported by the fact that he gave away his prized belongings days prior. In 2022, interest in the case spiked again when a photograph surfaced of a man in Missoula, Montana, who bore an uncanny resemblance to Bryce. However, a detective managed to locate the individual and confirmed he was not Bryce Laspisa. Despite widespread media coverage and continuous efforts by law enforcement, private investigators, and missing persons groups, no verifiable sightings of Bryce has ever been confirmed since the morning of August 30, 2013. There has been zero activity on his social security number and bank accounts, and no social media activity. Today, the disappearance of Bryce Laspisa remains one of the most baffling unsolved missing persons investigations in the state of California. He remains listed in the country's National Missing Persons Database, NamUs. As for Bryce's parents, Karen and Michael, their search for their only son never ended. They actively run the official Find Bryce Laspisa Facebook page with the hope that they might get answers someday. I'm Frank, and I'll see you again. Goodbye for now.